What up, good people? It's me, Johnny, back at it again with another video. And with me growing up loving the game of basketball since the early 1990s, I've had conversations with random men at the barbershop. Sidebar, you get some of the best debates there at the barbershop. But in these debates, a lot of the times what comes up is just who was the best NBA player in the world spanning from the 1990 season until today. And I think that's a pretty fascinating thought. So, what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to give my thoughts on who I believe was the best player in the world by year for the modern era, of course, post 1990. The video is might end up being a little long, so sit back, grab a snack, and let's talk about it. But before I dive into any of that, if you enjoy the video today and want to see more content from me, please like the video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell so that way anytime a new video comes out, you will be alerted. Also, if you're into podcasts and want additional content from me, check out my podcast that can be found anywhere podcasts are being played nowadays by searching for the same name as the YouTube page. But without further ado, let me dive into this. So, off the top, if there's a player that I believe was the best, player for consecutive number of years, then I'm just going to group those years together and, of course, make my case for why that is. That said, let's start with the 1990 season. And there's no surprise here, it's Michael Jordan. He was the best player in the world, in my opinion, from 1990 until his first retirement in 1993. During this time, MJ won three NBA titles, three finals MVPs, two league MVPs. He was a three-time first team All NBA performer. He was a three-time first team All Defensive performer, a three-time scoring champ, and a one-time steal champ within that span of time. He was the best two-way player in the game, and it was not close during those years. And no one during those years did more or accomplished as much. So, yeah, that's an easy pick. Now, after Jordan retired or got suspended, depending on who you ask, it left best player in the world up for debate. And Hakeem Olajuwon said, "Let me go and get that from you." In my opinion, Hakeem was the best player in the world from about 1990 to 1995, and here's why. During those years, he was of course, two-time NBA champion, two-time Finals MVP. He won the league MVP. He was a two-time All NBA performer, second team, and of course, third team. Then he was second team All Defense in 1995. During this run, Hakeem is responsible for, in my opinion anyway, the greatest carry job and hardest championship won in the modern era, and that's the championship he won in the 1995 season. During that playoff run, the Hakeem led Rockets beat the Karl Malone John Stockton Jazz, the Charles Barkley Dan Marley Suns, and the David Robinson Spurs, that year's MVP. And then he ended up beating the Shaq and Penny Magic. These 2 years, much like Jordan before, with what Hakeem was able to do, makes him the best player, in my opinion, during those years. Now, before anybody starts to bring up that, man, all you bring up is accomplishments. And yes, I do that because I know we don't like accomplishments nowadays, but yes, I bring them up because they matter. But of course, player skills also go into my opinion on this as well. For example, during the 1994-95 season, an argument can be made that David Robinson was just as good as Hakeem during those 2 years. But of course, the separation is what Hakeem was able to accomplish during those 2 years. So keep that in mind as we continue through the video. Of course, after this, the next 3 years from 1996 to 1998 belonged to MJ because, well, another three-peat as well as a lot of other accomplishments. Starting at the 1999 season, after, of course, MJ retired again for the second time, that's when it gets interesting because at the end of the 1990s and the start of the 2000s, the best player in the world, well, again, was up for grabs like it was when Jordan retired the first time. I know the Spurs won the title in 99, but in my opinion, I believe that the best player in the world from 99 and until about 2002, the best player in the world, in my opinion, goes to Shaq. During this 4 year period, Shaq was able to accomplish winning 3 NBA titles with 3 Finals MVPs, a regular season MVP, a scoring title. He was a 4 time All NBA first team and a 2 time All Defense second team. This was the period of time that Shaq established himself as the most unstoppable force in the NBA that in the modern era that people have ever seen and honestly have not seen since, considering during this time is the last time we saw an NBA three-peat from a team with his Lakers squad. Now, yes, Shaq had help, of course, and one Kobe Bryant, to actually do that. But, more on Kobe here in a little bit. After this title run, the best player in the world went to the big fundamental, Tim Duncan. Now, in my opinion, that was from 2003, I would say, till about 2006, and Tim was the best player in the world. During this time frame, he was able to accomplish, winning 2 NBA titles, one in 2003, where he took out the 3 time reigning, defending, undisputed NBA champions with the Shaq and Kobe Lakers en route to the title. Of course, in during the span, he was a 2 time Finals MVP, a 3 time All NBA performer, 2 first team and 1 second team. He was a 3 time All Defensive performer as well. Tim does have 2 MVPs to his name, but they actually came right outside of these years, which is why I didn't include them in any of his accomplishments there. Now, I did a video a little while back on the channel entitled Hardest NBA Championships Won, and this 2003 title run, in my opinion, absolutely fits that billing, and even more evidence why Tim Duncan was the best player in the world starting at that time. And of course, I'll leave the link to that video in the description if you want to go check that out. For this take, I know, I might get, some people to say that, oh man, I'm tripping. But if you disagree, let me know why and in the comments and, make your claim if you don't believe Tim Duncan was the best player during this time. Now, I will say moving on from about 2007 until I'll say 2011, the best player in the world was Kobe Bean Bryant. I know there's a point of contention during these years, which I'm sure I'm going to read about in the comments, but I believe when you look at the numbers and accomplishments and the way he played ball, it's clear to me that during this time is Kobe Bryant. During these years, he was a 5 time first team All NBA and 5 time All Defense. He was an NBA MVP. He was a 2 time NBA champion, a 2 time Finals MVP as well. Much like Jordan doing either of his two three-peats, Kobe was the best two-way player in the game. Other stats that I love that also back up just how great Kobe was during these years is for both of these titles that Kobe won, that on those teams, he did not have one top 75 player, not one on his team, a feat that only Akeem Olajuwon pulled off back in the 1994 season with the Rockets when he won the title. Also, if you look at the road on the way to the title in 2010 by Kobe and the Lakers, every team they played won over 50 games that year, including the 8th seed. Yes, an 8 seed won 50 games in the OKC Thunder, the 53-win Utah Jazz, which I believe had a top 5 defense that year, and then the 54-win Phoenix Suns with, of course, 2 time league MVP Steve Nash on it. Oh, and then in the finals, he played the 50-win Boston Celtics team that beat them 2 years prior. And oh, did I mention that he did all of that without a top 75 player? So yeah, these years belong to Kobe. From 2012 until 2018, these years pretty easily, in my opinion, goes to LeBron. During these years, he was the best two-way player in the game, I would say, in my opinion, from about 2012 to, let's say, 2015. And then from 2016 to 2018, though he was not a great two-way player like he was during those years, he was just simply the best overall player in the league, and it wasn't close. In this time, he was a 7-time first team All NBA performer. He was a 2-time All Defensive performer. He was an NBA MVP. He was a 3-time NBA champion, one that saw him and his team come back from a 3-1 deficit against that year's best team. That, hey, if the Golden State Warriors would have won, they would have been talked about as the greatest NBA team ever. But that didn't happen, of course, in the LeBron led Cavs beat them, and they're the only team in the NBA Finals history to actually come back from a 3-1 deficit. This one, much like some of the other aforementioned greats, shouldn't have to get debated because it should be understood that LeBron was just the best player in the world during those years. Now, 2019 comes around, and the best player in the world title changed quite a bit depending on who you ask during this year. For me, I, love and value two-way players. If you've seen my ranking for my top 10 that I did on this channel a while ago now, back in the ancient years of the channel, you will see that I actually value two-way players for the most part. I know there are some people off in LA Magic who I wouldn't consider them two-way, but they Magic was just insane on the offensive side of the ball. But having said that, for a lot of that reason, I know that this is going to be a hot take for some people, but I actually have Kawhi Leonard as the best player in the world for 2019. During that year, he was traded from the Spurs to the Raptors during that offseason for DeMar DeRozan, and Kawhi had a very good regular season and an all-time great postseason. During that year, he made All NBA and All Defensive Second Team. He won the NBA title along with the Finals MVP. He beat the third and the first seeded teams in the East that year. Also, I know he and the Raptors beat the Warriors in the finals, and I do know that at that point, the Warriors were, done with injuries, due to, KD and Klay Thompson going down. But look, that's the way sports shapes up sometimes. So even though, yes, it's some people's opinion, including mine, that if Golden State was fully healthy, they would have beat the Raptors. But in any case, they didn't, and the Raptors are the NBA champion. During that playoff run, though, Kawhi led the league in both total points scored, win shares per 48, and he had a ridiculous stat line in the playoffs. And the defense he played against Giannis, yes, with some help, but even with that, it helped shut the door on Giannis, who was, I think, the Milwaukee Bucks was favored going into that series against the Raptors in the Eastern Conference Finals there. This year, I couldn't give best player in the world to LeBron or KD because, well, they both got hurt at some point of that season. And then with them out, and then what I saw from Kawhi and his play, and then, of course, with the numbers and the accomplishments, it just backs up for me why Kawhi takes it for 2019. 2020 and 2021 best player in the world for me, in my opinion, goes to the Greek freak Giannis Antetokounmpo. Hope I pronounced that correctly. If I did not, I apologize, Giannis. But during this 2-year period, he was 2-time All NBA First Team, 2-time All Defensive First Team, an NBA champion with Finals MVP, and he was top 10 for both scoring and rebounding for both of those seasons. Some can make a case it started back in 2019 with Giannis, and though he was an MVP and Defensive Player of the Year during that particular year, along with being, first team All NBA and first team defense, Kawhi was just a better player at the time. But during these 2 seasons, though, Giannis was the best, only truly really to be rivaled by the guy who has been the best player in the world from, let's say, 2022 until today, and that would be Nikola Jokic. I know a lot of folks have been, acknowledging him now since what he has been able to accomplish during, this time frame, which was being a 2-time All NBA performer, an NBA champion, and a Finals MVP, and of course, being top five in both rebounds and assists, with the assist part being just wildly impressive considering he's a center. I think people take that for granted considering he's been doing this for so long. But yes, obviously Jokic is a great passer. Also, he was either first or second in triple doubles during these years, and he was doing all that while winning. I know I mentioned that I'm more of a two-way player, early on, but Jokic is just so dang great at what he does on the offensive side of the ball, and his defense isn't just fall off the floor bad. And because of this, I think we just have no choice but to give him that Roman Reigns treatment and acknowledge him. When he's off the floor, back to what I was talking about on the defense, if you start looking at the defensive numbers with him being on the floor and off the floor, his team's defense numbers actually drop quite a bit. So again, he isn't that bad of a defender. We will see, of course, as time goes on just who becomes the best player in the world, as we have plenty of great talented players in the league that might be able to lay claim to that title one day. But let me know if you agree or disagree with me in the comments. And until the next video, have a good one. Take care.